Is it not? Yeah, okay, 6:34. Thank you. Um, okay. Okay, I am going to go ahead and call the February 5th, 2026 Turnagain Community Council Zoom meeting to order. So looks like we have about 24 participants so far. So I really appreciate everyone zooming in this evening. And I'd like to go ahead and thank husband Dan Gleason for hosting and Karen, our Vice President Plotnikoff, for co-hosting this evening's Zoom meeting. As well as Karen, we have Chris Habich as our secretary, Sandy Rabinowitz as our treasurer, and our two at-large board members, John Isaacs and Jonathan Galen, some of whom may be here this evening and some not being able to attend. So thanks everybody for joining in. So the next step is approval of the agenda, and I do have two amendments, but I'll see if anybody else would like to amend the agenda as it was sent out with our meeting notice.
Hi, Kate here. Just wanted to make sure one of those amendments was for my presentation.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Kate. Okay, I'll go ahead and jump in. So amendment number 1, we need to add under old and new business, and it would be the last item under old and new business. So it would go after the draft FCC bylaws revision overview. Kate Sav, is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's so, but yes, close.
Oh, excuse me. So,
No
and
worries.
she's
Hard
going
to
to
pronounce.
talk to us about a proposed lakeshore roadway easement vacation down by Lakeshore Drive. So there's a platting. This will be coming before the platting board, and so you can give us all those details, Kate. So that needs to be added. Is there any objection to that, adding that? Okay, hearing none. The second amendment is due to time constraints because we have a very, very tight agenda. We're going to go ahead and remove the new and Turnagain, and that was going to be kind of a modified new and Turnagain. We're going to explain it, but is there any objection to going ahead and taking that off the agenda for just this month only because we're booked? Okay, all both of those are good. So thank you so much. So I need a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Sorry, I didn't catch the second.
Second, Steve.
Oh, Steve, thank you. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as amended? Okay. Then we'll go on down to announcements, or excuse me, approval of the January 15th Turnagain Community Council minutes. And we did meet on the 15th rather than the, I believe, 6th, or no, it was whatever day it was. Anyway, we had a Zoom glitch, but for those of you who were able to follow us, you found us on the 15th. So can I have a motion to approve the January 15th, 2026 TCC minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. Is there any objection to approval of the minutes from last month? If not, they are approved. Thank you. And thank you to Chris for getting these all together again, like he always does. Okay, next item on the agenda is announcements. And Rebecca, are you here? I haven't had a chance to yes, Rebecca, would you like to go ahead and provide a brief announcement on the topic that we've discussed via Zoom email?
Yes, that'd be great, Kathy. Thanks. Hi, my name is Rebecca Marks and I work for Solstice Alaska, and I'm just making a quick announcement on behalf of the Fish Creek Trail Connection Project. We are forming an invited participants working group for the purpose of gathering input on potential art installations and interpretive elements for the trail. I had shared an invited participants working group letter and what that role would look like with Kathy, and I'll ask you to distribute it to the group because we're seeking 3 representatives from the Turnagain Community Council as well as representation from across the community to get feedback and input over the course of 4 meetings. They'll be starting the first week of March. We're still trying to pin down when the exact date will be, which hopefully in the next week or so we'll have that date clarified. And then these 4 meetings will be 2 to 4 weeks apart, starting that first week of March. And they'll be anywhere from 60 minutes to 90 minutes each. And they'll be just a way to get direct feedback from the community on these elements. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Rebecca. So I'll go ahead and
Amanda has a hand raised.
yes, Amanda, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just have a school update if now's a good time.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, John, how should we handle this? Because we've had a core group of people following this project closely. So it would make sense for, consistency with regard to that project. But if we're limited to 3 people, how do you think we should handle that?
I think let's maybe go back to the people who attended the last land use committee meeting and see who's interested in being on that. I think, we have to sort of think about both a little bit of the geographic interest in terms of anybody who's really close to Fish Creek Trail, those of us in the land use committee co-chairs, but then also think if there are some people who might have some special areas of expertise. Sandy Rabinowitz might be one of those if we're looking at things like landscape architecture. So I don't think we can make a decision tonight, but
Okay. Yeah,
I would
that's a
say-
good
I would say-
idea. And
yeah, I
we
would say
know
the
who
people who are,
attended. So.
yeah, people who are interested in being one of those 3, I would suggest you send the names to Kathy and I, and then we can get back to the folks who attended the last meeting and make a choice.
Okay, thank you, John. Yeah, that's a good way to handle it. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And then the other announcement that I have is there is a long-range transportation plan, LRTP 2055. So Turnagain Community Council has followed this for many, many years. There's going to be some focus group discussions on different topics, and this is statewide. This is a statewide document. So, there's not all sessions would be probably applicable for anybody from Turnagain to follow, but the draft transportation assessment memo will be available for public review and comment from Monday, February 9th through Sunday, March 8th, 2026. And the focus surveys will be online during the comment period, and they've got a whole list on their website of, when the different topics are going to be online and people can participate. So just possibly things that within our boundaries and what we would be interested in is active transportation, which is just kind of a real, kind of a broad area, maybe transit, international airport. But again, I would recommend that you go to the Public Works, or excuse me, Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities website for the long-range transportation plan if you want more information about it. And do you think that specifically Turnagain should be taking a look at it? Maybe the board as a default. Amanda, do you have your hand up for this item?
No, it's just for the other announcements.
Okay. So unless anybody has a lot of interest in this, why don't we assign the board to take a look and see if we want to participate in any of those focus groups and potentially have something for council to weigh in on before that March deadline. So if that sounds good. Now, Amanda, yeah, go ahead if you have another announcement.
Yes, just giving, so I teach at Turnagain Elementary for 2 weeks of the month. And just the biggest news that we're getting for the school is that ASD is looking at a plan that would combine the art and the music teacher together, and also the PE and the health teacher together. So this would be a big change to those services at the elementary school. We don't know what that looks like. There's just a lot up in the air right now. So anybody you know in education, especially in the Turnagain era, just give them a lot of support during this time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. I know that there's going to be some big decisions for the school district and to make, and so many people, whether they're educators, students, parents, anybody involved with the schools, are going to be impacted. So thank you for bringing that up, Amanda. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, let's go to board report. So our next board meeting is always to be announced because we don't tend to schedule it until much closer to our next meeting, which is going to be March 5th, 2026 on Zoom.
And
So we'll still be
Kathy?
doing, yes, John.
I would like to suggest, that maybe we consider moving our board meeting up to the week before our TCC meeting, because that can maybe allow us to get the agenda a bit more finalized and get some agenda material out early. So I think, as a board, we should consider moving that up just a little bit from when we typically have it.
Sure, we can certainly consider that. Based on even just seeing on Monday evening between now and today, we've had changes to the agenda, additions, things that come up, and that's kind of why we morphed into fairly close before we finalize the agenda, because that tends to be the case. But Sandy, go ahead.
Well, I would just agree with John's comment that, and Kathy, remind me, but many years ago when I was on the board, I thought we did meet sort of like 10 days out or 12 days out or something like that. And so I recognize things come up late, but I think meeting sooner, trying to get the agenda out sooner, I think that's a good goal.
Yeah, and we could do then another revision of it and send it out closer to the date if there's some major changes to it.
Yep.
So we can certainly send out an initial agenda, the board meet, sometime the week before, and then send out an initial one that probably won't be finalized, but at least it'll give some people a feel for what's coming up for the next meeting. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Sure. And Sandy, welcome back. And so I talked to Kathleen McCoy last weekend, and so the three of us need to find a time to meet to go ahead and get our treasure business taken care of at Northrim. So maybe sometime next week we can do that.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, good. Okay.
Kathy, it's Matt Clayman. Is there a chance you could take my report
Yes.
here in the next little bit?
Yes, and FYI, Matt contacted me just a little bit before we started. He's got a really tight agenda up down in Juneau, so he asked if he could provide his legislative report shortly after we got started. So thank you, Matt. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Sure. Well, good evening, and thank you for letting me present a little earlier than scheduled. We're I think in our third week here in Juneau. There's been lots going on. The governor, I think, gave his earliest State of the State speech in the 8 years he's been governor in the first week, and there was an effort to override his veto of legislation regarding out-of-state corporations and that have no presence in Alaska but sell lots, and that veto override failed. The governor's also got a fiscal plan, which I think you probably all have heard about. I would say three of the key features on that are a seasonal sales tax of 4% in the summer and 2% in the winter. He wants to increase the oil and gas production tax from 4% to 6%. There's a spending cap as part of his fiscal plan. I would broadly say the fiscal plan hasn't gotten a particularly warm reception in Juneau. Kind of different folks, depending on their perspective, have differing objections to it. So I wouldn't say that the governor's fiscal plan is getting a super warm reception, but those are some of the big topics going on. And then there's the rural healthcare transformation project with a lot of federal money that we're learning lots about. And that's a lot of federal grant money coming to the state in a very short period of time. And then another thing we're hearing a lot about from folks across Alaska is concern about transportation funding and the $70 million that the governor used his line item veto to cut in the 2026 budget. He's now got the same amount of money in as a supplemental request to take up now to try to, and I think there's a lot of support for getting those funds in to keep the summer construction season going forward. So those are just some of the highlights here in Juneau, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for our senator? Let's see, do I say, Amanda, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Senator Kleeman. So some of us teachers were very excited to hear about the federal tax education scholarship program that would be able to grant thousands of dollars to public school students. Have you heard any talk about legislators supporting this as well? It sounds like the governor's opted in, but I'm trying to understand if it would require legislature support as well.
I'm one of several legislators that I've heard talk about it, and we are very supportive. But it actually in this discussions so far of school funding and state budget, that hasn't really come up with a lot. It hasn't come up in the legislative session so far, so I actually don't know whether legislative action is needed or not. I'm optimistic that if it's available without legislative action, then I'm very optimistic they'll go forward and make those applications.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like a win-win for everyone, that they'll get $1,700 off their tax bill, and that money could go directly to kids' scholarships.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Matt? Okay, if not, then we will go ahead and let you get back to work, Matt, down in Juneau. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you very much. And my last little plug-in, you'll all be getting here in the next week or so, our constituent survey within the paper newsletter. And you can also answer the constituent survey online. We really appreciate the answers and collate them and report back on what you all have had to say.
Okay.
Bronze had a question in the chat.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I need my Dan and board members to aware. I don't look at chat because I got too much else going on, but let's see.
Bronze, you want to ask your question verbally so that it gets out? He can answer it.
Let's see if I can get chat opened up here.
His audio is not working.
What is the plan for the? Okay, what is the plan for the $200 million for the ASD schools?
You mean, is that the question about trying to close the gap?
Yeah.
There's lots of concern in the legislature. We had a meeting with the school district last week before they announced it publicly, saying this was coming. We're very much aware that the funding last year was actually not keeping up with inflation. We knew there would be challenges this year. And that's one of the high priorities for us, is to continue to increase our investment in public education, because we've really fallen behind over many years. And so we're very focused on that and paying attention to it, and that'll be ongoing discussion as the session goes on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bronze, and thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Okay, all right. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you all.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll go back to board report then. Let's see where we left off. Okay, so FYI, since this is something we followed for a few years, the 10-year community council boundary update, the assembly did approve the draft. They did make a couple of amendments on the floor on January 13th, neither of which affected Turnagain Community Council boundaries. So the bottom line is our boundaries will change, but only with regard to the coastal areas. Our old boundaries included low mean tide, so it went out into the mudflats along the Turnagain coast. The assembly changed that to high mean tide. So basically now none of the mudflats, none of the water will be within our boundaries. Although
Correction. Mean high tide.
Mean high tide, thank you. And so Anna Brawley did state at the meeting, because we had expressed concerns about that and had opposed that change. So Anna said, Turnagain and all the community councils that have coastal boundaries should continue to follow projects and weigh in on them. She didn't feel like that was going to be an issue. So time will tell. We hope she's right. So then the Heritage Land Bank 2026 and 5-year plans, we submitted comments. The assembly public hearing is coming up on February 17th. So I'll be testifying on behalf of the council on that. So we had approved council comments last fall already, I believe, last late winter, fall. Beyond the Beige project for Kiwanis Fish Creek Park, mentioned this a little bit about this last month. Didn't know too much about it, but there was a group of us, 4 people, that met over at Anchorage Park Foundation yesterday with regard to this project. Basically, they want to redo the mural that is just that little 3-foot high, 106 feet long mural there, cement kind of wall. And it had different designs and painters and things throughout the years, because of course at some point they kind of wear off, and so the Anchorage Park Foundation has got $5,000 for this project. So it included an artist type person or somebody kind of connected with artists, as well as Lindsay Hyduke, who represented Bernard, and I was there representing Turnagain for this very initial meeting. And so Allie, the person at the Park Foundation, she took some notes. So we kind of decided, put out a call for artists through the end of March. And they're going to talk to like UAA students and school kids, potential artists, painters. Proposals can include painting murals themselves or sketching in to have other people paint in, have more public participation. The theme of, there could be different ideas, but we talked basically water, because since it's Fish Creek and the creek runs through that area. And then also maybe a tie-in to Indigenous place naming efforts. So in April and May, the 2 community councils will be presented to the artist options. And by the end of May, we will have to come to a consensus on, what kind of designs they may come up with and that we would like to have at the park. So if you're at all interested in this, let me know. So it's just going to be kind of an ongoing project and probably be painted, late summer. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, so that's beyond the beige. Let's see. That one I don't want to put in there. Sorry. I've got too many folders. So, okay. Okay, next item is the Fish Creek Trail Turnouts Project. I put it in there, but I didn't reach out to anybody to get an update. If you'll recall, was it maybe in December, November, December, we had formed a committee and went out on site and provided some input on a preliminary design for the turnout there by the coastal trail and the Fish Creek estuary. Sorry, Dan? Dan,
Yeah,
did you say something?
no,
Oh, I apologize. I thought I heard you say something.
no.
So anyway, we'll see if we can, our committee brought it to the council to approve, and we haven't heard from the project people since. So hopefully we'll have an update at our February, no, today's February, March meeting. Yeah. Okay. Official streets and highways plan comments are due February 15th. Really hasn't been on the radar much as far as the board. Is there anybody interested in having the board, take a look at it? Usually we do weigh in on this document, but we've been so busy with so many projects that it is what it is. John, what do you think about the board needing to take a look at this? We typically do.
I think the last we looked at this, there really wasn't anything in the current update of streets and highways that really affected Turnagain. They were sort of other streets. So, I mean, I think we can look at it, but I doubt we'll be submitting any comments. I can go back and take another look at it, but I saw nothing that was Turnagain oriented.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we just don't want to lose track of it if there's something that needs to be,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next on the agenda under board report is the Alaska Legislative CAPSIS project funding request. So the deadline is February 20th to submit something, and been sent the application that you need to fill out, and it's picking a project that we'd like to see get some legislative funding, probably a project that doesn't ordinarily get legislative funding. It's not like an AMATS program or have good other sources. We've got a list of projects, both parks and trails, and then also roads and drainage projects. Does anybody have any input or want to have some input on? We should just pick from that list since we've already approved that list, or if we think we want to come up with something separate. Does anybody have any thoughts on what we might want to submit to CAPSIS?
Kathy, an observation, I think given the state budget this year is just going to be so tight, competition is going to be extremely fierce on this. And I don't know if it's worth the effort coming up with anything new. If we have anything that's kind of a high priority from the previous list and would be easy to submit, that would be my thoughts.
Okay, well, it does make sense to do it that way. We can take a look at our CIP list, and then, the board can make a decision about, something maybe from the top 5-ish and go from there. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me, Kathy.
Okay.
Kathy, I think we can discuss that at the next board meeting.
Yeah, well, they're due on February 20th, so we'll have to get that done now.
I'd suggest, the board members or anyone else can take a look at it, the notes and the documents, and if there's concern, get a hold of the board.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Okay. Okay. Then FCC delegate report. So we did meet on the 21st, and then on the January 27th assembly meeting, FCC and the community councils were recognized, celebrating the 50th anniversary of our existence. So unfortunately, the weather was really bad that night. So we were kind of hoping to have a lot of people turn out and cumulatively accept that recognition. But there were a few, I think there were 4 community council people, along with Ari, who is the executive director of the Federation of Community Councils organization. And so they spoke for all of us, that we certainly appreciated the recognition, because a lot of us have worked really hard for a long time on community council items, and there was an acknowledgement. We do make a difference, and we are in the charter. So it was nice to be recognized. There was a public forum on better public meetings held the 29th of January. I did not attend, but John Isaacs did. And I don't, if you want to give like a 1-minute recap of what you learned in that forum.
So this comes from a grant that Federation of Community Councils got working, I think, for the National Civic League, and it's to do a pilot project to how can they improve civic engagement. And this is being done around the nation, and it seems to have 2 pieces of this. One is how can we improve civic engagement and participation within community councils, and how can the civic engagement be improved between the public community councils and the assembly. So this was the initial meeting. I would say about all the people there were community councils, with the exception of Aaron Baldwin Day, who was the only assembly person there. And after some role playing, they broke into small groups. And so they came up with a number of sort of observations in terms of sharing their experiences among individual community councils. There was a fairly common concern that most community councils felt that the assembly really was not responding to or acting on the comments submitted by community councils. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be explored, about how can there be better interaction with the assembly rather than being limited to 3 minutes in one of the regular meetings. There also were some ideas shared about communications within community councils, experience with in-person, hybrid, and Zoom meetings. I think there are a number of things, we should bring to the board to consider, and then bring back to the council as a whole to see. One of the things that was suggested is that some community councils have taken part of a meeting, or maybe even a whole meeting, and not gone with a standard agenda, but maybe focused on more group participation about what they think about their community and what could be improved and what should be priorities. And I think that's something we should also figure out how we can do, knowing that we have very busy agendas. There will be a report that comes out of that, and when that is given, I will make sure that Kathy has it to put on our website so that people can look at it.
Okay, thank you, John. Thanks for attending that on behalf of our council. Then on Saturday, January 31st, there was Charting the Course Leadership and Officer Summit. So they were kind
Amanda
of.
has your hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda, quickly. Yes.
Yes, John, I was just wondering about, that was great to hear that the whole, all the councils coming together and looking at that. I was curious about just Turnagain Community Council's own kind of like internal audit of that, like when the board reviews how their participation levels are, and anything they do to look at that and change things.
I don't know that we have anything that is formally done on a regular basis, but I would suggest that it is time to sort of take a look at that as a board, and figure a way also to get council input on how we might change things. I'm not sure we do that at a council meeting. I'm not sure if we have people submit comments ahead of time, but it would be good to find a way to get suggestions about how we might improve communication and the way we run things and look at things as a board. And perhaps I would suggest that we talk about this at our next board meeting, and then come up with a mechanism for getting feedback for that, and announce that at our next TCC meeting. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that'd be helpful. We always, as teachers and right, public employees, we always have to go through evaluations or even surveys, are really helpful too.
Yep.
So I'm sure there'd be some great, easy steps. You guys are doing a great job. This is just, being able to help people, especially that aren't familiar with councils.
Yeah, and the survey is a great idea to consider. I really like that. Thanks.
Yeah, we used to do one about every 5 to 10 years. That was when, everything was done by postal mail. Those were a lot of work, but they were very interesting. And I have to say, at the FCC delegate level, haven't really discussed that too much. There's probably councils that are doing that, but nobody's really talked about some kind of big wave of surveying or getting some kind of feedback. So it might be a good topic at the FCC level. Um, okay,
Yeah.
so that we can all learn from each other on how councils are reaching out.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, writing that down. Okay. And then with regard to bylaws, John, did you want to give a really brief overview of where we're at with FCC bylaws? We were given the second version, official second version at our January 21st meeting. A lot to digest that's so different that you can't do a side-by-side comparison between the current bylaws and the proposed new bylaws. Everybody made it very clear that the potential action taken on this new version of the bylaws would happen no earlier than our March FCC delegate meeting. And, if delegates don't feel comfortable that we think we're still not ready, then we can put it off to May. I mean, this has gone on for a year, so we don't want to drag it on forever. But I know, John, you said just to give a real brief summary of maybe the main differences between current and proposed.
So again, it's my understanding that these changes in bylaws were taken to try to remove a lot of I guess standard decisions that sometimes take time to get approval from the full board or the full group of community councils, and to create a board of directors with some subcommittees to try to make some of those decisions easier to make. And I think that is the intent of it. If you look at the original bylaws, there is no consideration of having a board of directors and subcommittees. And so, that I think is the intent on why this was done. I haven't been involved in some of the earlier versions, and I've only peripherally paid attention to some of the concerns related to it. I think what Kathy says is important, that if this is not going to be considered until at least the March FCC meeting, that will occur after our March TCC meeting. And I think we do have a question of whether TCC wishes to submit comments on it as TCC, or whether we want to rely on individuals reading it and submitting comments to FCC. I have to admit, when I look through it and I look at some of the changes, I do have some concerns that I think some decisions have been taken away from the delegates and given to the board of directors, and there are potentially some transparency and accountability issues between the board of directors and the delegates. And I would certainly have some comments and questions and suggestions reading it by myself. How we do that and weigh in, and if we wish to weigh in as TCC, is kind of a different question.
Yeah, and if I might jump in, John, and so for those of you who may not be, that familiar with what we're talking about, currently, when the community councils were started 50 years ago, and districts were drawn, and I don't know how many different community councils existed back then, but there's kind of always been about 30 plus. And then when FCC nonprofit organization was formed, again through funding from the assembly, the organization itself is not mentioned in the charter. It's just a nonprofit organization that's formed by councils. And so when that happened, then we needed to have a nonprofit has to have a board. So all 30 some, each one of the 30 some community council delegates who serve, we're all board members. And so one of the changes, as John mentioned, is to reduce the number of actually nonprofit board members to, maybe between 7 and 12, something like that. No number determined, but certainly would not include each delegate. And so then the rest of those who would not be elected to the board, and the whole delegates would elect these people as board members, then we would still have input, we would still have meetings, we would still participate. But if there was something that a nonprofit board needed to decide and vote on, then it would just be those board members. Obviously, not before getting input from all the delegates. But that's kind of that a main one. There's some other changes in there, but that's certainly where the focus is, where there might be some concern. So, yeah,
I might suggest, if TCC members have a chance to look at this and have some concerns, I would suggest potentially sending some of those in to Kathy, and we can consolidate those as a board and make them available as part of the packet for the next TCC meeting. And depending on what they look like, we can make a decision at that time as to whether or not we want to submit formal comments as TCC, which would go through Kathy as the delegate, or a resolution, or we want to have people submit individual comments. But it is worth looking through them and seeing if people have individual concerns, and it may very well be that a group of us have some common concerns and they can sort of coalesce into a set of comments.
Okay.
If I can
Anybody have
jump
any?
Yeah.
Amanda.
Yes, it's a very complicated document, and it's going to take me all these changes. And so I haven't read through what was just attached to the agenda yesterday, but I do want to go through it slowly. It's very hard to understand. And so I think that I like, putting it before us members to really process, but that the processing is going to take time. And however that happens, it's like the guidance is needed from someone who didn't write the changes. You know what I mean? Like, to try to understand that. So I'm trying to think how to provide that for Turnagain.
Well, Amanda, if I may jump in, at the last delegate meeting, it's difficult I've been sitting through all of this, and yet I couldn't go item by item by item by item and tell you this is what would change, this would stay the same, this is how it would morph, this is how it would be different, because I didn't serve on the committee. There's a bylaws committee that did the drafting, and then the rest of us just kind of had to digest it all at delegate meetings. And we went through a number of versions before this is officially the second draft. And so I suggested at the delegate meeting in 21st that FCC just sponsor a workshop and invite any community council members to come. And so that it was just like a 2 or 3 hour, whatever it would take, to kind of go through things to anybody that's interested beyond the delegates who ultimately will be voting on this. And I was voted down. It was my motion to do that didn't pass. So it's just up to each each community council to kind of figure it out. It was disappointing because I thought that would be really helpful and productive for all of us.
So,
Yeah, I
Kathy,
just wonder.
go ahead,
Go
Amanda.
ahead. Oh, I just wonder if in person, like I get the time. Sorry, we're still in the dog alarm zone. It's just an in-person sit down, at a coffee shop or something. I'd be welcome to sit down maybe with some other people and just kind of plow through it in real time. So I'll send that out in an email to you guys and feel free to share.
So I think that would be good. We talked about having somebody from either FCC or somebody who had drafted it to come on and talk about the changes. But I actually think you could get bogged down as to what changed. And regardless of what changed, I would suggest looking at the current version because what's in the track changes and what wasn't track changes, I probably highlighted at least 5 or 6 areas where I have some questions or concerns. So don't get hung up in the changes so much as sort of taking a look at it as a whole and see if it makes sense and if there are areas you have concern. But yeah, if you want to send out an email that we can share around that anybody else is interested and has the time to look at this, we could certainly pull a group together at a coffee shop and talk about it.
Especially those with legal background would be amazing.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay, so we do need to move on. Oh,
John.
sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say this is a complex issue. It's a state of flux constantly. And to Amanda's point, and anyone else, a separate sidebar discussion, whether in person or Zoom meeting, should be considered. But we've got a lot on the agenda now tonight,
Yep.
and we need to move along.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Yes. Okay, so moving down to reports. So let's see, is Anna or Cameron with us this evening? I'm sorry, I haven't looked to see who's.
Oh yeah, I'm
Anna's
here. This is
here.
Anna, and I was
Anna.
running late.
Okay, would you like to provide assembly report? Welcome.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a report, and then I do want to leave time for questions too. And I know, as usual, you guys have a busy agenda. So, let me think, because I was at Spenard last night, so I'll probably retread some of the same ground. First is all the items for the ballot are set this year. So we had a meeting. This was actually last week's meeting. We had 2 meetings in a row, last week and this week. But last week's was the setting of everything that goes on the ballot for April, at least on the kind of issue ballot proposition side. So we have a number of bonds. I will say one thing this group is tracking is the kind of redesign funding for Turnagain Street. So that is in the bond. There was no change really to the projects from back in November. No one ran amendments on those. So that will hopefully go forward, but of course it's in the hands of voters now. So you'll see more information about that. I know the Muni puts out information, just factual information about what's in the bonds. And then of course, if any of them have organized support or opposition, you'll see that, on the political side. But so that's almost done. And then related to that, another piece that will be on the ballot is not a bond, but it is got some attention last month, the special tax levy for the Anchorage School District. So, and I think there will be time, obviously, to unpack these in more detail. So I'm going to give the very short version, but I was a co-sponsor of this and happy to do so. So essentially, what happened is we have a local contribution limit in state statute, and typically, at least in the last several years, the Assembly has always voted and the community has supported funding to the maximum contribution we can locally for schools. So there's a required minimum and a maximum optional. So we discovered that this year, because of the kind of late decision making around the total funding and the BSA change, which is great from the legislature, that we actually found there's a little bit of a gap. So it's certainly not going to solve all of our budget issues. It's about $11.8 million. And it's the difference between what we could be funding the school district and what we have approved in our budget so far. And we don't really have a great opportunity to change that in terms of the school district's budget. So this is the way to do that. And then I'll also say, I know we've had the 2 pieces of feedback. One is there are folks who are concerned about how ASD is budgeting, or, what decisions they're making. And I would say, just as a reminder, the Assembly sets the total budget for the school district, but after we get the budget from the school board, and more specifically, The school board are the ones who do increases, decreases to programming. We just set the total budget for the purposes of tax levy. So I know they're going through their budget process. I know member Lessons on the school board was at Spenard last night, and I know there's folks who there's a lot more conversation to be had there. This 11.8 million obviously is a smaller number than 80 or 90 million, what the actual deficit is for the budget if we continue on our current path. And so this is certainly not going to solve everything. No one is pretending it is, but it is a way to at least help stop the bleeding somewhat. So you'll see that on your ballot. And the other question that I've gotten is, why is this only one time, right? I think a lot of folks, really want, well, probably almost everybody just wants to stop talking about this issue every year over year and have a more long-term fix. And of course, we would like that as well. But again, because so much of it is really at the state level, whether it's funding in the budget or it's those formulas, so there's really a limited amount we can do at this point. And again, the deficit is much bigger than our ability to fill that locally, again, per state law. So anyway, so that's a big deal. It's one time. There's a lot of really, I think, long-term uncertainty. What happens with the budget long-term? Maybe there's a formula change, whether it's this year or another year. So that's the other reason to say one time isn't ideal for long-term planning, but it is maybe the most realistic right now. So this would be an additional property tax levy above the cap, but it's not a loan, so it's not a bond. It would be that one-time collection of funds for the schools, essentially. So look for more of that soon. I don't have ballot proposition numbers yet. Those are going to be coming from the clerk's office soon. And of course, you'll see a lot of other information about the election coming up. So next item I would mention is, I know there was a lot of interest in kind of an ordinance that we actually did pass on Tuesday. It was making some changes sponsored by the mayor's office, co-sponsored by Mr. Perez-Verdia and Mr. Johnson, and making some changes to our public nuisance laws or kind of lower level criminal laws. Of course, we don't prosecute or charge felonies, but we deal with misdemeanors. So things like indecent exposure in public, spitting on a person in the public. So really things that I think we all know are not okay. And in a lot of circumstances were being charged or prosecuted, but just finding some gaps after talking with police about, for example, if the conduct wasn't, directed at a person or there wasn't a witness, right? There's just some technicalities that make it harder to actually follow through on some of these cases. So there's a lot more detail there, but that's essentially what that ordinance does. And of course, the continued effort for folks experiencing homelessness, folks with mental illness, right? Other, folks who engage in behavior that can make people uncomfortable and sometimes can be threatening for sure, but also is maybe coming from somebody who's in the throes of addiction or, really just needs help as much as, as much as anything else. Then it's also a kind of opportunity to try to intervene there and put someone not in the correction system, but through other pretrial diversion, treatment programs, things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity or a lot of pathways that folks can be kind of routed to that wouldn't just land them in jail. And so I think that's the goal. And, I have mixed feelings about all of the approach of using enforcement by itself, to kind of encourage pro-social behavior, but we also know that it does take many different pieces, and we are working on the other pieces as well. So anyway, so I would say if you want a detailed version of that, I would certainly speak to someone at APD or in the prosecutor's office for details, but that's really what we're looking at. And we're hoping to see a regular report of kind of how those changes have been effective or not. Are there still gaps? What cases have been charged or not? Are we seeing an impact there? So we'll have a feedback loop built in and hopefully get some data in a few months. And then lastly, I'm trying to think what else I should share. There's always a lot going on. I guess I would say in general, with our budget, we know we still have huge issues. Obviously, we don't, other than this tax levy, we don't have a major revenue item on the ballot. And I know there's already been a lot of conversation about that really for the last 2 years, first with Project Anchorage and then with the mayor's sales tax proposal. But our budget issues are still there. And I would say, even if one of those things was on the ballot, no single thing is going to solve all of our issues. We have a deferred maintenance backlog for a lot of our roads, facilities, our physical infrastructure. We have a tax cap, which controls the growth of our spending, but also means that basically we've slowly cut most departments over time because of inflation and other kind of factors, the way that works. And there's a valid conversation to have about property taxes, what is affordable and what people can support, and how much we should rely on property tax versus other options, and how much should we contemplate cutting services, and having that conversation. It's always a hard one. So none of these are easy conversations. But I am continuing to hold conversations around our budget. So not saying here's what we should do, but letting folks know here's how things are now. Here's how they've changed. Let's talk about how our budget works, and let's talk about the things that aren't working for the long term. And so we'll continue those. I think we don't have any currently on the books, but we did do a recorded version on Zoom last month. I think I mentioned that in one of these meetings. And so just we'll definitely get the word out as we do more of those conversations. The feedback has been people have really enjoyed having those conversations in person with each other. It's not just talking to the assembly members, and really kind of thinking about, where we want to go. And that last thing I'll say then is I just remembered the big one that we've heard a lot about is property tax assessments. And so just a couple things there. As we know, every year, January 1st, folks who own homes or own property get a green card in the mail, an assessment card. And that is the assessor, which is not a political process. It's not the assembly. It's not the mayor saying, here's what I think everything is worth. It is a whole process done by our assessor and his staff using what it's called computer aided mass appraisal system, or CAMA. You might have heard that. So the idea is that they're looking across the board, and the goal is to be consistent and transparent and methodical about how we make that assessment. We also have to assess the full and true value of the property in the municipality per state law. So again, state law really directs a lot of what we do, or at least a fair amount of how we do our processes. So this year we know there were some methodology changes, and we just know property values are going up, partly because of our housing issues and other factors. But the bottom line is a number of folks found that they saw pretty big assessment increases. Not always really clear how that happened. Properties that look the same from the outside that are worth different. And so really sorting through that. So what we have right now is we have our process that we use every year, which is to call staff if you have questions or you think there's an error or you think there should be an adjustment. And a lot of those cases, they're getting more calls than normal, so it's taken longer to get back to folks. But that's really your first step, is to talk to the assessor's office. So the phone number is 343-6500. I'll put it in the chat when I'm done talking. And then also, because we've seen a number of these assessments and just a lot of questions, as I said, there were some methodology changes that impacted some neighborhoods more than others. And so if you have called and tried to reach out and have not gotten a call back by the deadline, which is next Wednesday, February 11th, the Assembly on Tuesday passed a resolution essentially urging the assessor to continue working through these with individual folks who have questions or concerns or want to do the appeal. And also, if someone does not get a call back and does not get their issue resolved by that deadline, that would give basis for the Board of Equalization and staff to continue working with that person, so that they would have, not for everybody, but if you tried to make contact, didn't get there, then you would have until March 11th. So an extra 30 days. So the bottom line is, even if you have questions and you're not sure if it's correct, or if you really do feel like it's incorrect, contact staff first. Get your name in there. You don't necessarily have to do a formal appeal, but they can tell you about how that works. You have a right to that if you choose to pursue it, and you would be going to the Board of Equalization. And then again, I'll just reiterate, this is not a political process. Certainly, assembly members, we've gotten calls, all of us, the mayor's gotten calls, and we're trying to help sort this out, trying to make the information clear, what changed, what didn't change. But we are not in there, advocating, or I'm not doing appeals, right? Like that's not my job as an individual member. And so our job is really to make sure that we're routing our folks to the right place, so that you can talk to them. And I think we would all agree we would not want the assessment process to be political. And you might have seen some rumors online that claims it is, but just to be super clear, get your contact in with staff, pursue an appeal if you feel that is the way you'd like to go, and really just make sure that you're keeping track of that February 11th deadline. But as I said, this year, there will be some extra time for folks who maybe haven't gotten a call back. So I know I shared a lot of things. Just happy to take questions, or if folks want to follow up.
Yeah, briefly, Jonathan, you have your hand raised.
I do. Thank you, Anna. I have a two-part question. What will be the additional cost per 100,000 for this special assessment, if you want to call it that, for the school? I think it's 11.4 million. And the second question is this folded into the total assessment by the Muni, and is it subject to the exemption for individuals such as veterans, seniors, and the like?
Yeah, those are great questions. So this would be part of your overall tax bill. The calculation, I believe, is that it's about $27 per 100,000. So if you have a $400,000 home, that would be about just over $100. Whatever the math would be, 108. And then yes, it would be part of your overall bill. So for example, if you have the residential exemption and the senior or disabled vet exemption, then you would be exempting $225,000 from your assessed value. So let's say your house is worth $214,000. Then yeah, I believe you would also, actually, I did have to check on that, because I don't know how that would work with bonds, for example. We know bonds are outside the tax cap, but generally
Right.
speaking, it's all part of one tax bill. So you wouldn't get two sets of bills. And I'm going to check on that, because I know there's not a whole lot of folks maybe who own property that have those exemptions, and it's less than that amount at this point, because we know values have gone up. But I'll find out about that. But essentially, you wouldn't get a second bill. This would all be wrapped in. And in fact, after our election, when we do the first quarter budget revisions, we are including things that passed on the ballot. Obviously, if it didn't, it's not included. So it's all part of that same process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll take one more question for Anna. Steve, I see your hand up. Does anybody else have their hand up? No, go ahead, Steve. Then we need to wrap it up and move.
So Anna, I mean, hearing all these issues over the last few months, especially the school, when is the sales tax going to be readdressed?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think a lot of folks have asked that, because I know there's some folks who are don't want one and they're very suspicious, and other folks who say, yeah, I do want to be taxed, right? So I think I can't answer the question in terms of timeline. Obviously, any sales tax needs to go to voters. And so there could be a discussion about a special election. I don't have specific information at this point, or it could happen next year. And I do want to acknowledge too, the state has put out, or the governor has put out, a fiscal plan, which includes a sales tax. And that certainly is not one that we would control, although obviously it would affect us. So yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns. And I think, as I said, there's no one solution to our budget issues, and we're going to need everybody. It's all hands on deck to say, what do we want to happen as a city, and what are we willing to pay for? So I wish I had a more concrete answer, but I know this conversation isn't done. I can say that. So.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Okay, thank you very much, Anna.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I see that we have, let's see, Keith, I believe, for Representative Carolyn Hall, since we did have our Senator Matt Clayman earlier. So if you're still here, Keith, I thought I saw you somewhere.
I am.
Oh, you have the floor.
here.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you guys for having me. Senator Clayman covered a lot of our, view from 10,000 feet points about Governor Dunleavy's State of the State address. On this 22nd January 22nd address obviously covered a lot of things that, it had something in it for everyone to be displeased about, just to put it one way. Just to add on to what Senator Clayman said, Representative Hall thought the characterization of Anchorage in the address was maybe a little bit unflattering. And so she has worked with some of the other Anchorage representatives to put together an op-ed highlighting how the city has come around resourcing public safety. And you'll probably see that letter out in the ADN soon if it's not already out there. As for the work we're doing in the legislature right now, we have a lot of different bills being worked on. Some of our most important ones are HB 193, which I'm sure you guys have heard about before. HB 235 is addressing PFAS, which are, I'm going to butcher the actual chemical names, but they're perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals, which are forever chemicals that are in our water supply. And this legislation would help align Alaskan law with federal law in testing and ensuring safe concentrations in our water supply. On a kind of happier note, on January 23rd, Representative Hall met with Ireland's Senate President, Mark Daly. She's officially joined the U.S.-Irish caucus of state legislators, and she's done it with Senator Kelly Merrick and Representative Mia Costello. Together, they've introduced HB 278, which would create an Alaska-Irish Trade Commission. I'm going to leave some time for questions, but one other important note is February 14th, not this weekend, but next weekend, Representative Hall will be in Anchorage for a constituent meet and greet at the Chugach Mountain Roasters. I think it's 4707 Spinard Road. You can find more info about that on her newsletter. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has questions for us.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Anybody have a quick question for Keith? Amanda, yes, go ahead. You need to unmute yourself, Amanda, please.
Thank you, Keith, for that. And then for the office putting together the constituent survey. And just wanted to know if those results were going to be summarized and if just to kind of hear, what feedback you guys are getting. And then also just for a comment as a single mom who I try to bring my kids downtown a lot, and even just walking through, like, it is still a problem that I've found with just still crime being escalated and concerns as far as that goes.
Sorry, Amanda, I'm not sure I caught the first part of your question, but your comment is very well received, and I'll pass that along to the representative.
The first survey was, I'm sorry. It was just about the survey that was sent out by Representative Hall. If we would get, if the constituents would find out what the results of that survey were.
Yes, you guys will certainly find out the results of the survey as they come in. I think right now, the most brought up topic was HB 258, which kind of surprised us, but this was a bill to spay and neuter and to establish a program to spay and neuter. It's currently passing through resources, which Representative Hall sits on. This is, a good bill for Alaska. I don't know how much the program will get funding right now with the state's current fiscal situation, but yeah, I'm sure results will change as more responses come in.
Okay, great.
Hey, Keith.
Okay.
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
I'm just sorry, Kathy, for butting in.
It's okay.
I'd like to. Would you ask the representative if she's gonna, through the Irish legislative or the group you're talking about? We'd like to get some good deals on tickets to Dublin whenever, so we can buy some Guinness. So, thank you.
Your concern has been noted. I'll pass that along to the representative.
Thank you much.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Tell Carolyn we all said hi and thank you for all of your hard work down there.
Will do. Will do.
Okay, great. So now we'll move on to school board report. And I believe I saw Kelly Lessons with us. Thank you, Kelly.
Hi,
The floor is yours.
great. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. Yes, I was over at Spinard last night and happy to be here this evening. It'll be a little bit of a repeat for anybody who was at Spinard. So actually notification went out earlier today regarding the couple, if you have kiddos in the system or you're an employee, we have had more than our share of snow/ice days. So there were a couple of days that were held to the side as being potential makeup days, and we're going to use those. So the first is going to be on Friday, April 17th. It was a non-instructional day. It will now be a full day of instruction. And then Thursday, May 21st, which is the day after we thought would be the last day of school. Should there be additional days with bad roads, we would then pivot to an additional makeup day on May 22nd. But we're all going to think good weather thoughts. For folks in the system or with entering kindergartners or somebody new to the city, the lottery system is how any family can engage with any school of choice, which would be any school or program outside of the one for which you're zoned. So that is open right now for next school year, and the closure date is March 19th. I will put a link in the chat after I'm done talking, but there's a lot of information there now. It is budget season. We had Assemblymember Brawley talk about the levy. So I'll do my best at a high level, and then again, provide you with a link for kind of a repository for information as we continue to move forward. So the projected deficit for next school year for the 26-27 or FY27 is now just about $90 million. And that is complicated, but boils down to inflationary drivers, flat funding over a long period of time, despite the historic base student allocation increase of $700 for this current school year, which was a $20 increase on the one-time funds the year before. The district has spent its fund balance, its emergency reserves down to the lowest possible level for this budget cycle. And in the budget that the administration has just presented to the school board for the board's consideration, it is doing so again. So at a high level, the proposed budget spends the bulk on direct instruction, 68%. The next largest amount goes directly into what we call student supports. The third largest bucket is operations and maintenance, 14%. District administration is just 5% of that overall budget, which is just over $600 million. The proposed cuts to the budget to balance that $90 million deficit begin with a 22% staffing reduction at the Ed Center. Sort of the head shed is the way people colloquially refer to it. Then there's about $13.5 million in administrative and departmental changes, another $9.5 million or so in special services. The bulk of the cuts, however, because we are a people-centered district, have to take place at the school level. So we went through savings, we went through administrative cuts before the administration looked at school-based changes. But those school-based changes are significant. It includes areas outside of the classroom that are deeply valuable and personal. All middle school sports and activities, many of our high school sports, not all of them. Just the list of opportunities and staff is enormous, from the custodians who keep our buildings clean to counselors, librarians, principals, and finally, we have elementary specialists, so your PE, your health, art, music teachers, school nurses. There's a proposal to pivot from a school-based model, which goes back to Carol Cuomo's administration, to a like more of a regional hub. So we wouldn't have a nurse on site all the time at each of our schools. And after all of those cuts and more, which I don't have time to get into, then there is what we call a pupil-teacher ratio increase. And that is a metric we use to determine staffing at any given school. If there are 187 or 487 students, there's a metric that would say how many teachers that school receives to teach those X number of students. So when you increase that ratio, you decrease the number of teachers at that site, which then in turn increases class size. So this is deeply challenging. The path forward is going to take up the bulk of February because we have to approve, we have to vote on a budget and send it to the assembly by the end of the month. We had our first meeting on the 3rd. We have our next board meeting on the 17th. And I think that our work session will start at 3. The normal board meeting starts at 6 p.m. That will be a vibrant chance for public testimony on the proposed cuts. President Jacobs has shared that we will have a special meeting added to the end of the month on the 24th, I believe. It's a Tuesday, the last Tuesday. I'm just double checking my calendar. Yes, Tuesday the 24th. And that is likely when the board will likely vote on the budget. So this will avoid, a special meeting will avoid the board engaging with this heavy conversation at 11:30 p.m. And that's not a good time for anybody to do that. Finally, we will have one additional finance committee meeting on the 12th, so a little bit ahead of all of that. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to address the question of the levy head on and articulate and approve a formal amendment that would then be coupled with the budget itself that would specify with $11.8 million, the board will allocate, 11.8 million to X number of teacher positions. Perhaps there is language in the levy that says teacher positions and student programming. So perhaps there's space for, if board members would like to pull in high school sports activities, that would be contingent on the will of the board. But we know that the scale of that levy would support about 80 teacher positions, is what the board has been told. So we just want to make sure that the public is totally clear when they go to vote in April on what that levy would mean to the school district. So I will pause there and add a couple of things in the chat in just a second.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelly. A lot for everyone, whether you have kids in school or not. This is a lot to hear about, and it's unfortunate that we're in this position for our community and our educational system. Since we're running behind, unless somebody has a real burning question, we need to move on. So thank you again, Kelly. Really appreciate it. Okay, so now we're down to airport report.
I just have a question for member lessons.
Really quick.
Sure.
So yeah, and thank you. This is not a fun time to be an ASD board member, so thanks for your service again. But Senator Clayman just mentioned that he had been told a week ahead of time ASD's budget. So for us teachers, when we were told on Friday, and then we didn't have, the principal said they didn't have any information. They had been told an hour ahead of time. All these things, it's been really, really hard to get accurate information. And I have hearing what was said at the assembly meeting by school board members versus what was said at the school board meeting, specifically that this would be specified for teachers, the levy and things like that. Just what's the board's intention for clarity of communication going forward?
That's a great question. So my understanding, to your point about when legislators were notified, my understanding is that legislators had something like a 7 a.m. meeting on Friday of last week, which was after board members had been briefed, I was briefed Thursday afternoon to give us a heads up. So I had about 24 hours notice before the public did, but hadn't seen the budget book literally until it was made public because the staff was working on it. I know that there was a whole sequence on Friday of when principals were notified, staff, parents, the broader community. So the legislators only heard about an hour before principals did, not a week. Um, and to your question, which was, I think, about communication and the levy language, I guess I'm just speaking, I'm looking at the levy language, which I have penciled in next to me. It's teacher positions and student programming. I believe that the superintendent was speaking extemporaneously and gave the calculation of, if we allocated every dollar to teacher positions, it would be approximately 80. But I believe it is the board's prerogative at the end of the day, much as we did with an amendment a year ago for our budget. We said if we received $1,000 per pupil, we would spend it in X, Y, and Z ways. I believe that the board's prerogative, I believe the public deserves a clear amendment saying perhaps that there would be every dollar would go towards teachers. I just think it needs to be specified. And so I'm hopeful that an amendment will clarify the will of the board.
Yeah, because this is a really, just like you said, there was a lot of emotional things. This was a lot, and there were directors saying that, oh, we've had this in the works, and we're not getting that information. And so the taxpayers were right, 40% of their property taxes are all funneling ASD. So we just hope that some of those dollars are paying towards like giving us a heads up ahead of time. We would appreciate it to help with the emotional roller coaster.
It is an emotional roller coaster for everyone, board members included. But I will say that speaking personally, this is something I anticipated last spring once the legislator started talking about a $700 increase, which is a far cry from the over $1,800 that the state has calculated it needs to gain to catch up with inflation.
Okay, well, thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Kelly. Again, we appreciate it, you providing insight and what's going on this important stuff. Okay, so now we're going to move to airport reports. So Lex, I believe you are part of our group here this evening.
Hi, Kathy. Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. I am here to just share some community updates from the airport. We have on the call with us the engineering and environmental manager for the airport also. Her name's Jennifer, and she's going to share a little bit about the Lake Hood East boundary removal project after I share some of our community updates. But I will pass it off to her in a little bit. So for the month of February, so far, TSA has implemented a couple of new things at the airport. Effective February 1st, some things to keep in mind is they have put in pre-check touchless ID at the airport. And so when you're going through the airport and you're using pre-check, there's now a new technology that will scan your face and compare that photo to your passport photo. And so it's basically a way to streamline going through security at the airport. So just keep that in mind when you're traveling. The other thing is Confirm ID. This is also now effective at both of the international airports in Alaska. So that means when you're going through the airport, if you don't have what TSA considers an acceptable form of ID, it will not let you go through the airport unless you pay a $45 fee. And that fee does have to be paid electronically. So just keep that in mind. We don't want people missing their flights because they don't have an acceptable form of ID or they can't get through TSA. So just keep that in mind. And also you can go online and look at the different acceptable forms of ID before you come to the airport. So it's good to check on those. The next big update is we have 2 new meetings for our Part 150 noise study that are coming up. We have a SAC, a study advisory committee meeting that's going to be taking place 10 a.m. to noon and a public open house that will be taking place 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And those are both on February 19th. So the Study Advisory Committee meeting is again 10 to noon, and the public open house is 5 to 7 on February 19th. And both of those events are going to be held at the Coast Inn. So our Part 115 noise study is about halfway completed now, but this is the best place to go if you have questions about the study. If you want to learn more, they also have a website. If you go online and look up ANC Part 115 noise study, it'd be the best way to go and figure out information. But it's also a good way to learn new information is to come in person, ask questions, give your testimony, and we appreciate and encourage as much input on that as possible. Some other big things at the airport is we have a Cinnabon refresh. And so if you've ever been into the B concourse in the airport, there's a Cinnabon, and it now has several upgrades, which includes a new logo, updated display cases, digital menu boards, and a really clean and modern look. It looks really good. So if you're interested or just coming through the airport, go check it out. It looks really pretty. The other thing is we're encouraging you to be super active or vigilant when you're around the airport in regards to wildlife awareness. We don't want anyone, getting charged by moose. It's that time of the year where we just got a lot of snow, and it's causing a lot of the wildlife to come from, out of forage, the trees. We don't want any incidents to happen. So please just be cautious of if you're going around the airport to watch for any wildlife. In addition to that, because we received a lot of snow, a lot of the ice is unstable right now with the weather. And so if you're over by Lake Hood, just be very cautious. Please don't wander out onto the ice or let your animals or dogs wander out on the ice either. It's always an active airfield. And so please just be super cautious and try to spread the word if you know anybody who is heading to Lake Hood. The other big things is some of our flight activity has been picking up. And so we're really encouraging people who are coming to the airport and going on flights, having to park in our short-term and long-term parking lots to just be super aware of parking and come ahead of time to find appropriate parking. We've had a couple of incidents where parking is filled up in our short-term and long-term parking lots. And it's caused, people to have to go and find parking in the North Terminal lot, the Park, Ride, and Fly lot, or other private options. And so we're encouraging people to just go ahead and use those options ahead of time so that you don't have to struggle to find parking. Again, the best alternative parking areas that we have is parking in the North Terminal, the Park, Ride, and Fly lot, and using private options like Diamond Airport parking and Alaska Airport parking. Other than that, if you're interested in a job at the airport, you can go and find jobs on local71.com/jobs. Or if you want to receive these updates that we make every month, you can go to GovDelivery, Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, and sign up for them. The other thing I wanted to mention is we did receive an email from John Isaacs, and we don't have answers to your email tonight, but we're going to be working on getting back to you as soon as possible. But I'm going to kick it off to Jennifer Pepin, who is our engineering and environmental manager, and she'll talk a little bit about more about the Lake Hood East removal or boundary removal project that is going to be coming up soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Lex. Appreciate the updates on everything going on at the airport.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jennifer, you have the floor then to provide some more information on the Lake Hood fence removal project that we had previously on our agenda. Let's see. Let me find Jennifer here. Jennifer, are you here?
She's there, but she can't be heard.
Let's see. So
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Okay, here we go. I am going to share this. All right. I just wanted to come back on and give a short, quick update. The airport is doing a Lakewood East or the East Boundary Fence Removal Project next winter. And so we are going to be removing the fence that is in red here. We have found the as-built from when this fence was originally installed, and it was shown to be 1 foot on our side of the our side of the property line. So we are having surveyors come through and verify that it was installed the way it was intended to be installed. And then if we find anything that's not that way, we will be in touch. But so we're just verifying where it is now, and then like I said, the project will probably go out to bid sometime this summer, with the removal happening next winter. So we'll continue to provide updates as the project goes along. There is a website. It is the Lake Hood Fence Removal Project.com, and I will go ahead and stick that into the messages. Let's see.
Chat.
Am I sharing you guys now? So that is all I have. Is if there's questions, I'm able to answer them.
Okay, well, thank you, Jennifer. Does anybody have any questions? If there's,
Steve's
some
got a
questions or,
question.
I've
yeah,
got a
Jonathan,
question.
go ahead.
Hey, Jennifer, I hear about
We'll take Steve and then Jonathan, sorry.
the fence removal. I understand that. What's going to, or who's going to take the responsibility of putting the fence up again?
That would fall to the residents.
And do the residents know this is going to happen and they're a responsibility?
We have done door hangs, other types of communication to all of the residents that share our boundary. And we continue to come on here and we continue to provide updates to those residents. And we have a website, so if there's questions, we can move forward answer those.
All right.
And that's why we're starting now. And I mean, this is something we probably could have done this winter, but we felt that it was our duty to be good neighbors and provide residents with enough time to put in a fence if they need one and to be aware of what's happening here. So we delayed the project a full year in order to make sure that we could provide this information to residents and give them enough time to make a decision if they want to replace that fence or not.
Jonathan, you had a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Kathy. Ms. Peppin, on your diagram, you show two areas where the fence, the red dotted line where the fence is slated to be removed. There is a small section, there's two sections. The first one shows the red line.
Jonathan, can I interrupt you? So, Jennifer, could you put that visual up again? Thank you.
I
Sorry,
can.
Jonathan.
Just give me a second. There you go. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Before, let me preface my questions by asking you I guess it's a magenta colored fence that's remaining.
Yes.
And the purpose of this fence that's remaining is twofold, correct or not correct, which is to keep animals out of the airport and also security. Is that a true phrase or statement?
Yes. Yes, it's to
Okay.
keep the.
So if you're taking a look at the map very briefly, to the lower left, as I'm looking at it on my screen, you've got a section near the Lake Hood canals that is red only, but not purple or magenta. Is that going to be re-fenced because there won't be a fence there, which moose are everywhere around there, which is, that's basically, I think, parkland. And then on Lake Hood Drive, you have the red dotted line to the right, upper right, which is on a bias, and there's no magenta line continuing on to West Northern Lights Boulevard. So the questions are on both sections. Are you going to extend the permanent fence that doesn't exist now that essentially should? And if so, why not?
All right, so I'll take the one that extends to the west to Northern Lights. So that one is not needed. As you see, the magenta fence continues to the west along what we call echo parking. So that's this area. So that
Right.
protects the Lake Hood Strip area. I will have to ask the question about the one over by the Floatplane Drive area.
Okay, the only comment I have is on the one on the dotted line that you're not going to extend on, the west there, and the upper right on this diagram. That's a pretty long stretch. I drive that frequently out to the post office and also to Lake Hood. And that's a wild area that moose come and go on. If you put a fence across there to Northern Lights Boulevard, West Northern Lights Boulevard, you would have a much smaller area where moose would funnel from into the airport property from the north, western, the west northern lights, and all that property in Earthquake Park where moose hang out. So that's a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lamar, do you have any questions you want to ask at this time since you're in that area of Turnagain?
I don't. I think I just have a couple observations. I live right near the I'm not sure what to call that green looking mound there. I never figured out if that was a place they dumped dirt at one time.
This
Right
here?
here. What are you pointing at now?
This area. Is that the
No,
green mound?
Yeah. So I live in the neighborhood right adjacent to it, and I think I can say that generally people are. I don't think they really have a strong opinion whether you keep the fence up or not. But I think the question is more about the development that would be with the start of K Lot, which is on the farther left part of this plat here, whatever you want to call it. And I think that if there's going to be development, hopefully it's between the existing or the suggested purple line and then that mound there. You have an area there that clearly could be used to have development. I think what people who've this is thousands of dollars worth of investments by and everybody knows they're there about having if you will have a development which would be next to these houses. It makes no sense to us that it's better to be between, again, that purple line and then this, what do you want to call it, the moss there. There's be abilities to build hangars or whatever you want to do. So, and this other lot, which is, everybody sort of accepted what they're trying to do down in that corner for the K lot for the hangars. I guess it's mainly pilots and groups that fly out to Western Alaska. So anyway, that's going to come up more than once, but I think that's our big concern about if there is a way to address both what they need to have in terms of development and what the community wants, which is a continuation of a good relationship with DOT. But that is a relationship that depends upon hearing us and also not having hangars and noise and roads in that area between our existing line, if you will, and that I don't know what you want to call it, the mound. So
I think the problem, Lamar, is that fence is basically on the line really close to the taxiway, the actual runway. And that mound, I think that's a lot of wooded area. It's on the other side of it.
It was an area that was used for disposal area of soil a long time ago. And so it has just, vegetation has grown there. I will let you know that I think in a year, maybe 2 years, we'll get some more information. We'll be starting our master plan process for Lake Hood. And as part of one of the items on there, we're actually taking a deep dive in this area. We've gotten quite a bit of interest in leasing out lease lots here. And we want to make sure that as we move forward, that we're doing this in a thoughtful and responsible way. Because obviously, if people start developing multiple lease lots in this area, we've got questions about utilities, access, stormwater, and we don't want to do anything. We don't want our tenants to develop in a way that could cause harm to the neighborhood. So just know that we are taking a little bit deeper dive in this area as we move forward with our master plan. That'll probably go out for RFP, and like I said, I think in the next year. And so we understand the concerns of development in this area. And so we are really trying to be responsible and thoughtful about how we move forward and how we help our tenants figure out the best use for this area. So
I appreciate those comments. And I know one of the former managers of the airport, Craig Campbell, was very supportive of our efforts to, we recognize there's community development, but the idea that it has to get a lot closer to, if in fact it ends up to being closer to the neighborhood, people feel like there's got to be a better way for their, to have that because of the noise and the dust. And simply the closeness of an industrial, or if you will, not industrial, commercial area right adjacent to housing. So anyway.
So when that master plan kicks off, definitely come to the meetings, make your comments. We appreciate those.
Yeah, and if there is I know TCC would probably want to do it as well, and that is to be at the table when your group meets, or whether we can have a neighborhood or a community college, community council membership to be in some of these meetings. Just it's not to try to blow the place up, but I think there's some things that both TCC and then the neighborhood I live in, a lot of people are pilots and otherwise, and so they would like to be aware of what's going on, and not the last day of the event, but be involved when these studies first start.
We'll put that forth to the project manager.
Okay. So I have a quick question, and then
Kathy, I have my hand up too. So
oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yep, go ahead, John.
So I have 3 questions regarding the fence project. One, how are you going to access the airport fence for removal in the winter time? What's going to be involved in pulling it out? Do you know yet?
We don't know yet.
Okay. That might be something you want to let property owners know. The other observation is if the airport fence is 1 foot into airport property, owners might consider when they place a fence to replace it, because I don't know if they want to put something in ahead of time and risk it being damaged when the fence is being taken out. So just something consideration. And then the third thing is, I'm assuming as you actually get close to the fence removal, you will probably try to let property owners know immediately before doing so.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then Kathy, when you're done, I have a couple other airport things, and I suggest we can take the bylaws item 8:30 agenda off because we've already discussed that. But let me know if you want me to, when you're ready for me to talk about a couple other airport things.
Yeah, I do have. Thank you, John. And I do have just another question about that fencing. It kind of dovetails into something John just said. But you're going to go in there and remove the fencing in the winter. But there's some significant treed vegetation, along that boundary, and so how. You may not know this yet because you haven't put out any contract for fence removal if it's going to be contracted out. But I guess a concern would be to try and minimize the impact to the vegetation that's right up against the fence on the property, on the property line, and then any vegetation that's on the neighborhood side of the property line, that they may have vegetation there, but the removal would disturb root systems and so forth. So um, that's
We'll
a
put
that's
that.
a nice buffer there now. So how do you think the airport would handle that during the actual removal of that structure?
I am not so sure at this point in time how they're looking at to remove this, how to remove it. But we'll put those comments in for as we talk with our designers.
Okay, I would think the neighbors would be very interested in that. Okay, so thank you so much for that. And then so John, you're proposing to go ahead and remove the bylaws discussion from old and new business. So do you
Yep.
want to go ahead and formally do that, and then we can move on?
Yeah, I would like to move to take the 8:30 item bylaws discussion off since we already discussed that under board report.
Okay, can I have
moved. Second, Jonathan here.
Okay, is there any objection to the motion to remove that that item under old and new business, since we've already discussed things earlier? I don't see any hands up so far. Help me out, board. Or if there's any objection, make sure you let us know. I can't get it to slide 1, but it sounds like there's no objection. So we will remove that item for our agenda. That gives us a tad of a breathing room since, we've added something, the Lakeshore Drive easement vacation onto our old and new business. Okay, so then Jonathan or John, did you have anything else? Does anybody?
Yeah, a couple other airport
Yeah.
updates. It was great that Jennifer mentioned what's going on with the additional Lakewood development plans, and I had asked Terry Linseth 4 questions back in late January. She provided answers to them that I had sort of shared with the board, and she did say with regard to the additional Lakewood development plans, they'd like to offer an early meeting with TCC to share information about the planning effort and hear any of our initial concerns prior to finalizing the study. So I think we'll get the ability to have some early input on what they're looking at high level planning considerations for development of the East Lakewood airstrip. So I think that's great. I also asked a question. We received the presentation, I think, in November by Mike Schechter about the Anchorage Airport Partners proposed project on the West Campus. And I had asked about the status of that. And right now, that project consists of aircraft hardstand parking along with a building. They're looking at potentially constructing the hardstand this summer, and that they have submitted a categorical exclusion for the NEPA review to the airport and FAA, and waiting to see if FAA is going to approve that. If it is a categorical exclusion, there will be no public meetings. I have asked Terry if it's possible to get a copy of the draft, a categorical exclusion, to see what it says. And I also took her up on her offer to provide contact information to the developer, and we can perhaps reach out to them and have him give us a presentation at one of our next meetings. So that's that item. And then the last one, I asked for a update on the West Air Park project, which we learned about a year or so ago at transportation fair. And the airport is looking at building, I think, 4 hard stands on the west side of the north-south runway, further down from the sewage treatment plant. And if I'm not mistaken, that potentially involves relocating the road that runs from Point Warrenzoff down towards the fuel farm back a little bit more to the west. And so I wanted to know what the opportunity was, updating the status and schedule, and if there's going to be an opportunity for us to get involved. And Terry responded, it's currently in preliminary design. Construction is anticipated in 2028. As the project advances, additional information on schedule, environmental compliance, and public involvement will be shared, including when there's going to be those opportunities. I did ask her to consider perhaps giving us a presentation on that project before we adjourn for summer recess, just so we understand what they're proposing and what is that schedule, because I suspect if that road is being relocated as part of the project, there will be some public interest in that.
Okay. Yes, so we're expecting an early design, a preliminary design set this spring. And so I think that it is possible for us to provide a briefing before you adjourn for the summer.
Perfect. And sort of that's it, just as some additional updates, Kathy.
Yeah, and thank you, John. You did a yeoman's job of coming up with good questions on all the airport related things that we have been trying to follow. And thank you to Terry. I don't believe she's joining us today, but this evening, but thank
He is
you.
not.
Thank you, but
Very,
be
very
sure and
responsive.
send our thanks to Terry for her responses to John's inquiries and keeping us kind of in the forefront because of where we're located within our council boundaries. We certainly are interested in most of these, if not all of these things that are going on over at the airport. Okay. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the Spring 2026 West Anchorage Candidates Forum, and I won't take long. We talked about this at our last meeting and voted to support collaborating with other West Anchorage community councils to be a co-sponsor for an event that we have been a part of for quite a few years. So I did attend the Spenard Community Council last evening to bring this up with their council, and they did pass a formal motion to go ahead and approve their council being a co-sponsor as well. And I've got an email out to the other two community councils, Sand Lake and Taku Campbell. Haven't heard from either chair from those, but I plan to attend along with husband Dan, who's always wonderful about accompanying me on these things. We'll plan to go next Monday to the Sand Lake Community Council, and then a week from today to the Taku Campbell to make sure that they're on board with this. Because once we decide for sure who the co-sponsors are, we'll hit the ground running big time. Unfortunately, since we were at Spenard Rec Center last evening, we went to talk to staff there at the check-in area to check on available dates where the Spenard multi-purpose room would be available, and unfortunately it's booked. So we're not going to be able to hold this year's forum at that venue, but I'm sure there's other options, and that's something that a multi-council organizing committee will then pursue, fairly quickly. So the next big thing that we need to do at our meeting this evening is asking for volunteers from our council to serve on this wonderful event that we want to co-sponsor, the West Anchorage Candidates Forum. So please raise your hand if you're interested in helping with the organizing of this event. And since we've got two slides here, if I can ask the board to help out, because I know there's going to be so many hands that will be raised. It'll be hard to track all of them, right?
Yep. And Kathy, just to recognize that both Karen and Amanda had volunteered at the last meeting, and I'm assuming they're still interested.
Let's see, Amanda, are you still with us? Or did she sign off? Yeah, I believe she did indicate last month, so we'll definitely keep her on the
It looks
list.
like she's still there, but she's on mute.
Okay. And Karen, are you still good with serving?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did volunteer when it sounded like a lot less work and consequently. Thanks.
Well, the more participation we have between the four councils, presumably they're all going to say yes, the better. At Spenard Community Council's meeting last night, there were 4 people that volunteered to serve. So that's really good news. And if we can, certainly I will be on it. Dan, you want to be on the committee?
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Kathy, it's
Okay.
Sarah. I'd love to be on it.
Sarah, you were on it. Yeah, because
I
you.
think I missed one so far. I can't remember what I was doing, but
Yes, we would love to have you again
okay.
this year. Yeah,
Would love it. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you. And if you sleep on it and realize you wake up tomorrow morning and you think, man, I want to be a part of this, just give me a call or email me. Okay, so that's great. And so what is the next item on the agenda that I have to uncover my agenda on? Okay, let's see. There's a request for ad hoc committee volunteers for the regional trails plan update. Comments are due on this on March 13th. And so the Parks Department had an open house about this draft plan. Let's see. Husband Dan and I went and we saw Marnie Isaacs there, and I don't know if there was anybody else from Turnagain who's usually attends our meetings. Since it was an open house, people were coming and going. But it was very interesting. And of course, you could put post-it notes on these big maps with regard to proposed trail projects in this draft plan. And so that was a great opportunity for me representing Turnagain and our past and current positions with regard to some of these trail projects along the coastal trail, Fish Creek Trail connection, and so hopefully that input was well received. And like I said, comments are due on the 31st of March. So I thought maybe the best way to handle review of it and coming back to the council for formal input would be to just form an ad hoc committee. So would anybody like to participate on behalf of the council to do this, be part of this? And if we don't get a lot of volunteers or, more than like one, we'll probably just use the board as a default base of the ad hoc committee, and then anybody else that wants to join in can do so. So is there anybody that wants to serve on this committee? Is Marnie with you, John, this evening? You're on mute, so.
She has something else going on this evening. I'll let you know if she's interested.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, then why don't we just go ahead and have the TCC board members serve on that committee, and then possibly Marnie as well. John will check.
And I would also suggest if people are interested, read the plan. If you have comments, again, send them in to Kathy and the board can consider those.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just might just take a moment to say that it's a very ambitious plan with regard to widening plans, making actually separate walking lanes as a third lane for some of these plans, including the coastal trail. And, a big chunk of the coastal trail goes through private property, not public property parkland. And so I don't know how private property owners may respond to something like that. And so that's the kind of discussion that, we can have to see if there's, if we think that's a good fit for our particular, trails in our particular area. But it certainly is an ambitious plan that'll be interesting to go through and provide some input on. So, so thank you. And the last item on our agenda under old and new business was what we added at the beginning of the meeting. And so this is with regard to an easement vacation in the Lake Shore Drive area. So I think we're ready for that agenda item. So, let's see. So you've got the floor, and
Perfect. So I'm here to present
yeah,
about a
so
plotting
Kate, you have the
action
floor.
happening in the Turnagain area. My name is Kate Sove. I am the property owner's representative. This presentation is one of the first steps required before a plotting application can be submitted. The project site is located off of Lakeshore Drive, west of Wisconsin Street, east of Constellation Avenue, across from the Spinard Beach Park parking lot, and directly behind the Faith Christian Community Church parking lot. It is a 0.46 acre L-shaped parcel in the R3 zoning district that includes a 30-foot roadway easement, which wraps around the east and north sides of the property. The roadway easement no longer connects to any other developable rights-of-way, as it was vacated on the neighboring properties to the east and west, as well as the north when they were subdivided. Let me see if I can change my shared screen. So this shows the 30-foot roadway easement that wraps around the property. The owner wishes to vacate this easement as it is surplus to the current and future needs of the public and negatively impacts the future development of the property. Easements of this type cannot be vacated without going through the platting process. Therefore, the owner will be submitting a platting application for a subdivision that includes the vacation of the 30-foot roadway easement. The property will not be subdivided into multiple lots. It will become a platted lot with the same size and dimensions of the current parcel. The only substantial change will be the removal of the roadway easement. As you can see in the detail, the neighboring lot off of Lakeshore Drive to the west of the site is currently utilizing the first 100 feet or so of the roadway easement. We are proposing to replace that section of the roadway easement with a 20-foot access easement so that that lot will continue to have legal access for the shared driveway. Again, this is a presentation for the first step in the application process, so an application has not been submitted yet. After this meeting, I'll be able to move forward with submitting the preliminary application for review. Once the municipality accepts the application, they will set up a public hearing date before the platting board, likely sometime in May. If approved at the platting board, the case will then be heard before the Anchorage Assembly in a public hearing for final approval or denial. And then I will take questions and comments from the community. And if I pause in responding, it's just because I'm trying to record your comments and questions. Josie.
Hi, yes, thank you. So I live in the subdivision, right? It's the Lake Park Circle on the right side as the map you're showing. So this development would be pretty close behind my home. I'm curious, is this a single family development? Is it a multifamily development? So what can you tell me anything about what's planned for the development of that site?
Yeah, so currently this is just the easement vacation, but the owner is considering multifamily residential development. He hasn't made up his mind on how many units. I think it would depend on funding mostly. But again, he hasn't made up his mind, but it'll be likely multifamily residential.
And can you speak to what the code is for development in that area? Does it allow for multifamily now, or is that something that you would have to seek approval for?
No, it is an R3 zoned lot, which allows for multifamily housing currently, so nothing would have to be changed.
And I just want to clarify, you said that the 30-foot easement that's asking to be vacated at this point in time, there is no other utilities or other issues that could impact the vacation of that particular utility easement?
No, there aren't. We have already had a pre-application meeting with the city, which the utility companies sit in on, and they did not have any concerns. I believe the only concern was The AWU connect for the house at 3345 is diagonal, and that will just have to be put into our plans, that the AWU connect is technically in this parcel's land, but it will be within the easement, so it's not really a problem.
Kathy?
Yes, go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you. A couple of questions, Ms. Soul, regarding this diagram. First of all, the blue area the vacation you're talking about, speaking of, it's borders the blue area, right? To the top of it. I'm looking at it on my screen, and to the right.
So the blue area is the property in question. Let me go back to the screen that shows the easement. So the easement is this red hatched area. It's a 30-foot roadway easement that goes along the boundary of the property. It's already been vacated to the east, west, and north on the neighboring properties, so it doesn't really go anywhere at this point.
The piece of this is this kind of an inverted L-shaped property. This is the property we're discussing that there will be at some point construction pursuant to Ms. Hickle's question. The east of the property, that parcel, and then to the west of that property, which is east of the vacation, is the owner of the property in question and the deed parcel, as it looks like on the map I'm looking at. Does the same owner own those two parcels as well?
No, they have different owners. So the owner of the property in question that is having the easement vacated does not own any neighboring properties.
What is the access to this? It's not big enough to see from my on my screen, but the deed parcel 2023 dash last four letters. Yeah. What is the access to that now?
The current access is off the lake shore. So right here, you have a neighbor using the easement as a driveway. And I believe that the parcel also used this gravel driveway back when it was inhabited.
Okay, so that's a dual access for simplification between the existing neighbor and the vacation slot slash little strip right there, correct?
Yeah, so we'll be vacating the 30-foot roadway easement and we're replacing this section specifically with a 20-foot access easement so that the neighbor will still have legal access to their lot.
So in effect, when you start to construct a dwelling or multi-dwellings, that is how contractors and workmen will access the piece of property your owner owns, correct?
Yes, that is the only access point available to the property.
Okay, and I'm unclear who the vacation. Who will own that property then? Will it be your owner that you represent, so that the complete parcel will be available to develop in whatever form you want or petition for?
Yeah, no, the ownership won't change. The current owner will continue to own the parcel.
And you've determined that should it be you say it's zoned R3, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any requirements you'll need? Might be putting the cart before the horse, but for multi unit dwelling, will you be requiring or try to change any zoning, alter any zoning after this vacation?
No, there aren't any current plans to change the zoning. The owner is planning on working with the current zoning as is. If they did want to change the zoning, we would have to do a zoning application and come back before the council and to do another public hearing. that'd be an entirely
Right.
separate process. But
I
as
know how
there's
I
not
know how that
currently any plans to change the zoning as far as I'm aware.
I know how that process works, and help me here. The R3 zoning, what is the density allowed? And John, you could help in this if you would probably know. What is the density, maximum density on R3 zoning for residential?
Let's see. R3 multifamily, more than one principal structure. So 6,000 square feet plus 1,000 for every unit over 4 units. I believe, let me see how many.
So for the uninitiated layman, or not even a layman, how many units would that be of whatever size? Townhouse, a condo, number of condos, and so forth. How many units would that be
So
maximum?
it looks like this lot is around 19,000 square feet. So if we took 19,000 minus 6,000, you could do about 13 units, I believe,
Okay, I'm just trying to get my head around.
maximum.
Okay,
But obviously you need parking, you need landscaping.
sure. I'm just
So
trying to
that's
get
not
my
a solid number.
right. I'm just trying to get my head around compared to my lot, which is a single family lot in Turnagain off of West Northern Lights. The density, I'm a visual kind of guy, so
Mhm.
thank you very much
Thank
for your
you, Jonathan.
response.
Okay, I've
Hi,
got a,
Kate. Kathy, if I may, my name is Mark Maves.
yes,
I
go ahead.
I am so I'm Josie. Josie's my neighbor. I'm on lot 11A. When you see this diagram here, that has been the lot in question that they want to vacate the easement part of is actually my backyard. I mean that's been my backyard for 23 years now, and my question is would there be any development against against on that easement? Because what has happened, so Scott Westover is the person who these guy this S4 or whoever purchased the land from, but the person who cleared all of the trees and took out about 99% of the trees on this lot, and left it kind of just as is and just piles of trees and kind of rubbish, I'll say.
Mhm.
It since they have cleared that lot, I have pooling in my backyard, and I have there. I my biggest concern is the water that's running off of this property now that there are no trees, and it's literally my backyard kind of is soggy now because I don't there's no trees back there anymore. And my house is back off the lot there, but if there was a vacation of this easement and there's say concrete or asphalt poured in there, where's that runoff going to go to? Because right now it comes into my backyard, and there's so my concern is what's going to go back there and how it's going to affect my property, which literally is my entire backyard. I mean my entire fence line borders this. Like I said, I'm lot 11A, and my in-laws are the lot right to the south of us, which I can't see. It's 11, oh, maybe 11, and Josie is just a little bit to the north of us here. So I mean, that's my biggest concern is what's going to get developed on there, and what kind of drainage is going to be um, back there to not flood my yard, basically.
No, that's a valid concern. We have not surveyed the property yet, but for a site plan, especially for a multifamily development, the MOA does care a lot about off-site drainage. If a building was to be constructed in what is now the unvacated easement, it would have to apply to side lot setbacks, and it would also have to prove that it would not affect the nearby lots for drainage. Usually, especially for a lot like this that's R3, I don't remember what zone your lot is. But if the surrounding lots are a different zoning district, they will have to do landscaping between the different zoning districts. So this is R3. If you're a lower zoning district, then they will be required to do, I believe it's L1 or L2 buffer landscaping. I don't know who it was. I believe it might have been the previous owner who did the initial tree tear down, but they will have to replant those trees essentially if they do develop the site.
Yeah, okay, understood.
Josie,
Kathy, I have one
yeah,
more.
I just wanted to. Sorry, I wanted to follow up what Mark said is that, I mean, if they're gonna vacate this easement and we're gonna have this multifamily building right behind our lots, I certainly would hope that the plan includes the proper drainage, but also landscaping. I mean, we don't want to, look at our backyard at a big apartment complex. So, I just want to make sure we're raising that concern and that things get done in the right way to work with the local nearby property owners.
Definitely. Yeah, so that'd be part of the site plan design, which would be a step after this. We don't know what kind of site plan we're looking at this point, but yeah, that is a valid concern.
Hey,
I have a
Kathy,
question. Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
go ahead.
I own one of the townhouses at 3333 immediately on the east side. I find it a little startling that you say that you're going to put 13 units on there. What are the parking requirements? Is it two per unit by any chance?
I did not say that we would be putting 13 units on here. We do not know how many units the owner will want to put on here in the future. Someone asked the maximum allowable units that would be allowed for this lot. And for the zoning district, the maximum allowable units would likely be around 13 units, but that is not what we are planning on doing. I was just answering someone's question.
Okay, what are the parking requirements? I've done multifamily development, but in Washington State, not here. And down there, I had to have 2 per unit, 2 parking spaces.
The parking requirements are complicated. There is a code section, there is a list. You have to calculate the number of parking spaces depending on what type of units you're providing, whether it's a 1-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit, that type of thing. So I don't have the table off of my head, but you can definitely go look that up. I believe it's in Chapter 7.
And in terms of drainage from hard surface, we have 0 drains on 3333. And water is, well, particularly since the parking lot is 54 years old and is in deplorable condition, drainage isn't good. Where are you going to put the water? I don't think you can put it in Lake Spinard.
Again, that's a site design issue. Right now, this is just to inform the community that we are trying to vacate an easement.
Yeah, I understand vacating that easement. That's a minuscule portion of the whole thing. I actually didn't know the easement ran more than the first 100 feet back from Lakeshore, so that people in that, what is it, a fourplex, can get to their garage door. But you're still going to need some sort of side setback, rear setback. On
Yes,
all sides, you're going to need
setbacks in code will still apply to this property.
Right. What's the height limit?
For Chapter 6, let's see. Height limit looks like 35 feet.
Ooh,
That's
I
3.5 stories.
3 stories, yeah.
Some years back, it used to be like 75 or 85 feet. I'd heard that they were cutting it back to 45, but not 35.
Ralph, this is Jonathan Gale, and I would suggest that you contact one of our board members, John Isaacson, who's quite, John, you're on the line here, right? So, and have a sidebar conversation with regards to the zoning that's been changed and the parking requirements for construction that the assembly bought off on not too long ago. This is a major concern with many community councils and residents in Alaska. And then I have two questions for you, Kate.
Jonathan, before
Yeah.
you jump in, does anybody else have any that hasn't asked or spoken yet? Does anybody else want to address this?
So Kathy, two comments. One, I think the applicant's representative is giving some fairly accurate answers so far, having been on the planning board. And there will be a site planning process, which will have to look at drainage and some other issues. But I mean, some good questions are being asked. I do note that we're 7 minutes away from 9 o'clock, and so we do need to extend our meeting and try to be careful to stay on agenda as much as we can.
I'd make a move to extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
To 9:10?
Correct.
Second.
Does anybody have any objections? And because we've got a screen share up, which is good, I can't tell if anybody has raised their hands. So can you verbally say if you have an objection to extension? I don't hear anybody, so if there's no objection, that extension will be in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And
Thank
so
you.
the two questions I have at this time, and then I'll suspend any other comments or questions, is the S4 group. Could you very briefly, succinctly describe what the group is?
So
and
S4
also
Group is a land surveying and design company that I am an employee of. And I specifically do a lot of platting actions, easement vacations, rezones. I'm more in the planning design part of the company, but we do have land surveyors here. But we are a land surveying and design company.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is, as it relates to this vacation of this piece of property we're talking about, what are the implications or ramifications? This process requires that to get or to have the vacation granted or allowed, whatever the term would be. What is the process moving forward? Should there be an objection to this vacation? What would happen then? And is that a possible scenario?
So the next step would be after this meeting, it's part of the application and I will be able to submit the preliminary application for review. Once the municipality accepts that application, they will set a public hearing date before the plating board.
Yep.
That's usually about a month or two out. The plating board hearing will be a public hearing. You can come to it and you can make comments. Before that, the plating application will be up on the Muni's website and you can submit comments. There will be a notice posted at the property, which will have information for you to find the application by its case number. The plating board likely in May. The board will vote in approval or denial, and then it will go, if it's voted in approval, it would go to the Anchorage Assembly, which will also be a public hearing that people can go and submit comments on, to have public testimony, and it will be voted for approval or denial. If it is approved at the Anchorage Assembly, then it is approved and can move forward. That's essentially the process.
Okay, and then I did have one more, not last question, given your answer. In your experience, which it sounds like is quite good, if this vacation is disallowed for whatever reason, what would your client aside, would you still have the capability to develop a multi-units on this parcel?
Yes, the client can currently develop this parcel with multifamily units. It is an R3 zoned lot, and he could put a large building in the center if he wanted to. That's not currently in his plans, but yes, he could develop the property without vacating the easement.
I don't see how anybody could object to vacating that easement. Hasn't been used. I mean, I've been here 25 years. Nobody has driven down that quote road in a quarter century.
Okay, thank you for your replies and comments, and we'll be very, very interested as the community council.
What is your name, sir? I missed it.
Jonathan Galen.
Okay.
I'm a board member. Thank you, Ms. So. Appreciate your comments and replies.
Of course. Thank you, Jonathan. Dan, did you have a question?
No, I want to move to extend the point of order. Move to extend meeting for 15 minutes.
Dan, so there wasn't a move and seconded with no objection to extend to 9:10. So are you wanting to add 15 minutes on top of to that?
5 minutes, 5 minutes more.
So 5 minutes more to 9:15?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we'll need it.
Second.
Is there any objection? Okay, we're good. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you for addressing a lot of questions and concerns and just giving input. So please keep the community council updated on this. I do have a really quick question.
Absolutely.
I happened to attend a planning and zoning commission meeting on October 6th of last year. And somebody testified with regard to a lot on 3341 Lakeshore Drive. Is this lot?
This is 3341 Lakeshore Drive.
Okay, well, at that time, it was a Crystal Bittner that testified and was hoping to build 24 units on that parcel. Is there any connection whatsoever with what you're presenting this evening?
I don't believe so. I don't know. I wasn't involved with the project until a couple months ago. They brought it to us. I'm not sure who was doing anything with the property before then.
Okay, so what we have now is current information from you and nothing that may have happened at a testimony at an October 6th PNZ meeting last year.
Completely unrelated as far as I
The
know.
people who cleared the vegetation about 2 summers ago, I chatted with them now and then, and they told me their boss was going to develop some sort of big senior housing project. And I don't know why they sold it, but I heard they paid $190 for it and sold it for $410 or something. Good flip without building anything.
Well, hey, if I can add in here too, this is Mark again here on the back side of that lot. I mean, I know Scott Westover. I know him well. I know the person who sold it to Bittners, and yes, it was sold to Bittners, and that is who the current owner is of that land. I mean, Scott claimed. I mean, and as you said, Kathy, that was the person. And Bittners were the ones who purchased it from Scott Westover, which was SW Contracting.
Okay.
The current owner of the lot is a Paul Beater.
Paul Cedar?
Beater.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, regardless of what may or may have taken place, just testimony in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, just needing, it was in the context of people testifying that we need more housing in Anchorage. And so I just happened to be there that night and took lots of notes. And so now we're focused on this with this, which is right in our area. And so definitely want to be kept in the loop as well as those who live in that area. So thank you again, Kate. Appreciate you being here this evening.
Of course. Thank you for your time.
Have we, do we need to vote on support or opposing this?
No, we're not looking for support or opposal from the community council. If the community members wanted to make their own resolution on your own time, that's up to you. But I'm just here to bring this to your attention as is required by MOA.
Is it the wish of the body to take any action on this evening, or would we rather get answers from some of the questions that we may still have before we would do that?
Well, I'd like to have some uh, more information and come back in March to take a position. That's
Yes, I
my
agree.
opinion.
I agree with Dan. This is Jonathan Galen, and I'd like to suggest that Ms. Sove and the S4 group maintain a distinct, close relationship with the Turnagain Community Council relating to this project. I'll just put it on the record that we'd like to have specific, timely information and discussions with regard to this project in the Turnagain Community Council area. Thank you.
I
Thank you,
agree.
John.
I greatly
Sorry,
appreciate
point
that
of
too.
order. Wait, point of order. Dan, you moved that we get more info and take action at our March 5th meeting, and I don't think I heard a second. Was there a second on that motion?
Well,
Because then Jonathan, you jumped in but you didn't second.
well, I would like to have a contingent, any action, and Dan, I'd like to have that contingent upon getting more specific information from the owner of the property, the S4 group, so that if we make any comment or resolution or whatever, that we actually know what's happening and we can make a comment at that time, or understand what's going on and what the owner of the property intends to do before we make any kind of a resolution.
Kathy, Josie's hands up.
Thank you, Josie. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one comment. I went and did a search on the Municipality of Anchorage website, which shows the current owner as a company called Stillwaters LLC out of Ellensburg, Washington, with the owner name of Jason Rudy. So that was as of September of 2025. So there's different names being bantered about ownership, and I think it would be good to clarify that. Thank you.
Well, that's called transparency, and so I'll leave it at that, and we could move along, Kathy, as you wish, and thank you, Ms. Sove.
I just wanted to mention, Jonathan, that for your March meeting, you were correct. By then, I will have an application submitted and the MOA will have applied a case number to it, which will let you guys able to talk about it or make a resolution or a decision more easily, since there'll be something you can directly correlate.
Thank you, and I would encourage Josie and Mark and Ralph to get a hold of us as you wish. As a board member, I'm extending that courtesy, so please feel free to elaborate on any concerns you might have as members of the Turnagain Community Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for everyone who participated in that agenda item. Okay, so now we're down to Land Use Committee reports. So John, I'll have you step in as co-chair and fill us in on a couple of things.
Okay, so we had a land use committee meeting on the Fish Creek Trail. Might have been around January 20th, and a number of people attended. First I want to apologize to Kathleen Belaski if she's still on. She did try to set up a meeting with Mr. White Keys of the Audubon Society. I think because he said that was going to be a private meeting and not speak for Audubon, I'm not sure that would be worthwhile. But I think we'll still want to think about how do we talk to Audubon. We did go through the answers we got back on our comments. We identified a number of concerns that we still have, and they include things like trail and bike safety, how trash is being handled and removed, access and fire danger, And we are going to ask them for some better maps because their maps are still unreadable. So we're going to try to get them to give us some printouts that have some of the layers so we can see actually where the property lines are, where some of the construction zones and some other things are. And that is in my plate to move that forward, but haven't gotten to it yet. We also have some concerns about what might be some of the habitat issues on the coastal trail build out, which is on map 3. And we've talked about potentially having discussions with Audubon, with Great Land Trust, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Kathleen's reached out to Audubon. Kathy, I don't know if you're going to reach out to Great Land. I'm supposed to reach out to the Corps, and Dan's supposed to reach out to Fish and Wildlife Service. But I think we want to get that moving again next week so that we can set up a meeting with the project team to then try to get some answers to some of our questions. I don't know if there's anything else that anybody who attended the meeting wants to add that I have missed.
Excuse
I
me,
have
John.
my hand up. I have talked to Jeff Olson with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. He actually referred me to Chris Habish, our secretary, who's formerly state Fish and Wildlife, retired, and he has he would have people that he would refer us to from the state because he's Jeff said that this was probably going to be in the state Fish and Wildlife purview. So I have not reached out to Chris Habish yet and to get a point of contact from state Fish and Wildlife. So I'm still working on that.
Thanks, Dan. That's good to know. And no, I have not reached out to Great Land Trust yet. That's something on my to-do list, but I know that I talked to somebody before in that organization, so we should be able to get some good feedback from them. And if they want to, try and meet. So, John, just to clarify, so we're still trying to get these internal outreach to find more information before we would want to meet with the team as a committee. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so, but I do need to get back to Matt Edge and let him know what we've decided, what we've identified, and ask him for some additional maps.
Yeah, yeah.
John and Kathy, this is
Yes.
Kathleen Belosky. I have a question. John, did you say that I was supposed to contact the Audubon Society?
Well, I know, no, I actually said that you actually reached out to Mr. Whitekeys, which you
Yeah, I
did.
did.
And you sent me an email, and he said he would be willing to meet, but not officially as part of Audubon.
Right.
And so I think,
So-
and thank you for that effort. I think it might be better to talk to them officially than unofficially, particularly since we're dealing with habitat values. So, and I know he's gone as of the 31st, so for a couple weeks. So that window is closed, but thank you for setting that up.
Okay. All right. Well, if I was supposed to do something further,
Nope.
just
You
let me
you
know.
did what you were supposed to do. Perfect.
All right. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think that's those are the next steps then, to reach out and kind of focus on habitat, get better maps, and have another internal meeting. And then certainly in the interim, meet with or connect with Matt Edge, just to keep him in the loop and tell him where Turnagain's at, where our land use committee is at, and certainly look forward to meeting with the project team at some point in the not too distant future. So that'd be good. And as far as transit supportive development overlay update and anything related to that.
Yeah, so a quick update there. Make sure, hang on. Yeah, I am off. The mic's on. Quick update there. There's nothing new from the municipality, nothing new from the project sponsors. I think they have their hands full with other things. The We Love Anchorage work group that's trying to come up with some different solutions for it continues to meet. And their next meeting, if somebody wants to attend, it's open to anybody who does want to attend, is going to be February 9th at 6 p.m. at the Anchorage Lutheran Church, which is kind of like the corner of I think 15th and N, over by the lagoon. So we're working on some alternative ideas on how to improve community outreach, maybe have a targeted project and keep the R1, R2 out of it at this time. But we do want to keep an eye out just to make sure that nothing is introduced at the last minute before the assembly that moves this thing forward.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll put that address in the chat right now.
Okay.
Yep. So that is it for me.
Okay. We still have 3 minutes until our 9:15 extended. Does anybody have a really, really brief thing they want to share at this point in the meeting?
I have one question. Is the house fourplex or something like that that's in that corner of this lot, is that going to stay there? It seems like it hasn't exactly been densely occupied. It seems like, I don't know if they even have any units rented out right now. Is that going to stay?
I think
I
the
don't think
gal
Kate's with us
signed off.
anymore. Yeah, she signed off, so we don't have her
Okay.
to respond to
I'm
that.
just curious. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's
You might contact her offline here and see if she'd be, willing to look that up and give that answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to buy it, but just curious. They did a lot of work on it for quite a few years, and none of the tenants ever came back that I saw. So, all right, no more
Okay.
from me.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Anybody? Anything else? Or should we call it an evening? Really appreciate everybody who attended. I see we've dropped off a fair amount of people, but we had a good turnout this evening. Really appreciate everybody's participation and caring about our community council and all the things that we try and follow and be engaged in for our neighborhood. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Dan, is there any opposition? Okay, no opposition and meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
board. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank
night.
you. Thanks to everybody.
Get some sleep.
Sleep.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night. Okay, Dan, are we being